Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Todd coming at you, of course, with another episode of Living Your Best Life. Listen, if you don't know what we do on our show already, don't worry about that because I'm going to tell you, like I do all the time, right? But anyway, what we do on the show is we invite a professional on to talk about what they do and how what they do is contributing to a healthier society, a wealthier society, just a better society in general, right? That's what we do on the show. Now, today, once again, you're in for a real treat. You know what? I love to connect with people that are doing, really different things when it comes to getting healthy and or just getting well. And so alternative approaches is what I really do enjoy. Today, you're going to be, like I said, you're in for a real treat. We have Sheila Winger. She is all the way on the West Coast from the East Coast here, all the way on the West Coast and all the way at the top, like, up near Vancouver and Portland area, all that good stuff. But she is the founder of Shift Hypnosis. And I enjoyed this conversation because she is such a very, very brilliant woman when it comes to her knowledge in this particular area. I was just so intrigued with, how she laid it out and how simple it was. But you're going to really, really be impressed with her knowledge and her approach when it comes to overall wellness and talking about how to let go of some of that past stuff that we know that as a kid we got programmed with and that might be holding us back. So you're in for a real treat, like I said. So take out your notes as always and, learn and live your best life. Now, what are we talking about this week? Well, we're talking about those 50 foods everyone should stop eating after the age of 50, right? So I want you all to go by the website Well Beyond 50 and download that list and stop eating this food, okay? I know that I, struggle with it sometimes, but I'm doing my best. And for the most part, I don't do a lot of those things on that list. But I definitely want you to make sure that you're not doing that, nearly as much of the bad food as you may have been eating either prior to, 50 or definitely in your 20s. So anyway, everyone, check out the, get your pen and paper out, your notes out, your notebooks out, get ready to write down some notes, learn. But also after the commercial, we're going to hang out with Sheila Winger, Shift Hypnosis. All right, y'all take care. See you on the other side. Be good. Peace. Hey, welcome back, everyone. This is Todd coming at you, of course, with this another episode of Living Your Best Life, of course. Now, the commercial. Listen, 50 foods we should stop eating after the age of 50. All right, I want y'all to download that list because, hey, I'm 57 years old right now, and I know there are foods that I should just really cross off my list. Do I? Well, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. For the most part, I have cut out of a lot of those things. That list you really want to download just to get some information about 50 foods that we should stop eating. Well beyond 50, that's the goal, 2025 and beyond. Let's get well beyond 50. All righty, so everyone, listen. Today, I was so impressed with this young lady that's going to be speaking with us today about a topic that we've heard about, we've thought about, but we don't know a lot about. And she's going to break down this topic, this word, hypnosis, and kind of like give some clarification and give us some truth about what this really is and what it's all about and how she's helping people with her practice achieve life-changing results. And that's what we're all about here. We want to help people, of course, live their best lives. So Sheila Winger, I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show and Shift Hypnosis. That's who you are. That's what you do. And I'm so delighted to have you on because I want to know what this hypnosis thing is all about. So thank you for coming on. Talk to us.
All right. It is my pleasure. Hypnosis fell into my lap because I was a former educator, high school teacher, parent coach, volleyball coach, but I'd always wanted to be everybody's therapist. So I finally just decided to switch gears and become a marriage and family therapist. And it fell into my lap when I was studying in that program because it was a part of that program that I had to study hypnosis. And as I did a deep dive into it, I had a sense that this is an underrated practice. And I had a
Mhm.
conversation with a professor about it. He said it's incredibly powerful and not very many people are really aware of how powerful it is. So if you wanted to add that to your credential, it would really help. It would give you something most people don't understand. And so I immediately signed up for another program to finish hypnosis school while doing my MFT. And when I finished that, I knew unequivocally that I could help people far faster than talk therapy alone because I
Mhm.
had done talk therapy for myself, had a fairly traumatic childhood. And that took 14 years of on and off talk therapy. And it did some good, but it didn't make me feel better. It made me understand better. And when I completed that training, I knew that I could not just make people know and understand themselves better, but make them feel all the way better. And so I opened a practice. I said, sweetheart, my husband of 30 years, my beautiful husband of 30 years, said, I'm opening a practice right now. I hadn't even completed all of my marriage and family therapy stuff because I still had to do a supervision, thing for a year. And I just said, I'm just opening as a hypnotherapist right now because I know I can do it. And he's like, okay. And I was getting such dramatic results in my first year that I replaced my teacher's salary. I was high on the salary scale. It was a decent salary in my
Mhm.
first year with only word of mouth advertising because it was changing people's lives. So to go into what it does is it directly accesses the subconscious. That is where our limiting beliefs live. And we can only live as big and as beautifully and as joyfully as our limiting beliefs that live inside of us. And those get put there by experiences that we can't handle when we're young. So we decide, oh my gosh, because life is this way, I have to be this particular way.
Mhm.
I had to be watching for what would help my parents stop fighting. My whole life at 3 years old became that. How do I stop this from happening? Because it's so terrifying that I must learn to stop it. So I became the family therapist at age 3.
Mhm. Gotcha. Gotcha.
So at 3, I learned I have to be this way, hyper vigilant, watchful, perfect, so that won't happen. That was lodged in my subconscious until fast forward till I'm happily married and have my beautiful twins, and they're about 3 years old. It's funny how it works that way.
Mhm.
And then I realize I'm not good. I'm not good. I'm scared to death that something's going to happen to my children because I don't trust the world out there because I never felt good about the world out there. And that was lodged in my subconscious. Talk therapy helped me understand it, but it wasn't until I learned hypnosis. Hypnosis directly accesses the place in the client where that belief exists and heals it for good. And we can go
Mhm.
into that process a little bit later if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the key component, and most people have so many misconceptions about hypnosis, it is got a 93% success rate for changing habits, changing thought patterns, and relieving trauma. 93%. And it's because we have access to the subconscious. So let me give you one kind of visual
Peace.
contrast. In talk therapy, which, I do talk therapy. I have my sessions are an hour and a half to 2 hours. So we talk for a good half of that to really understand where is this limiting belief? How did it get there? But in talk therapy, if someone's nervous and feeling a lot of those feelings that we often feel, like self doubt or lack of worthiness or not good enough, they've built up protective layers about that, and they won't want necessarily someone to peek in and get to it. So it can take all this talking, that to finally get an opening to help them see it and understand it, but it never gets to where it lives in their body and their subconscious mind. When someone's in hypnosis, they're just in a nice, relaxed state. Their brain waves have gone down and relaxed and lower till they're in alpha or alpha theta. When our brain waves are in that level, we become like a sponge.
Mm.
We become like a sponge to what words are coming in. And when I'm speaking directly to a client, I'm speaking to the things they long for in their lives. And the part of them that knows they want those things and longs for more is just absorbing that. And I'm telling the subconscious that those things are absolutely are possible. And so they start to feel, well, what happens is since they've absorbed that into their subconscious, they leave here and something is undeniably different. And I tell them something has to be undeniably different, or you don't have to come back. Next time I see you, you have to tell me something's undeniable, or I won't waste any more of your time or
Mm-hmm.
money. They almost always do. And there's where that 93% rate comes in. I would say that my results mirror that perfectly. It's about 93% of those people come back and they're like, oh my gosh, yes. One guy said, I we had pizza and I only had 1.5 pieces. That's never happened in my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Something signaled me, you're done, you're good. Other people say, yeah, something was definitely different. I was calm and I had this situation that would have thrown me for a loop. And I stayed calm all the way through it. That wouldn't have happened before. So because they're just in this relaxed state, their eyes are closed. I'm not staring at them. What really the state that they're in is willing. They're just more willing and suggestible. So what I will say to them and even ask of them, they will do it. So when it comes to relieving trauma or a limiting belief, I have a specific process that will regress them to the beginning of where that belief began. And
Mm.
because they're in this relaxed state, they'll just go along with me. They'll just go along. Now, here's another really interesting point about this. When someone's having a feeling that, man, I always tend to feel the same feeling, like life feels repetitive, that has come from somewhere. It's from some little T or big T trauma that created this limited self that they had to be. And here's the genius of it. When I ask them in hypnosis to bring up that feeling that they always feel, that they're tired of feeling, that is a somatic signature in the body. It's maybe a tightness in their gut, or a cut off feeling in their throat. That's the same feeling that they felt the first time that limiting way of being came into being. So the subconscious then can follow it back and say, find other times you felt that way. And we'll go age regress back to other times they felt it until we get to the earliest one. Now we're where the whole problem began, the whole limiting belief, which was never fundamentally true, but they had no choice but to believe it because of those circumstances. Now that client is reliving that moment, and I have a way to have access to it to completely heal it, to convince 3-year-old person that that was never about them. They
Mm-hmm.
were they were a perfect, beautiful, precious child, and they had no choice because of people who didn't have the skills that you
Yeah.
wished to have. What happens is that 3-year-old inside of a client gets completely relieved of the duty. And the grown up sitting in my chair becomes a protector. Now, this is completely in line with IFS that we have to become the protector of our child. But in this, it happens in one session, not 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then my client at the end of that session, I say, how do you feel? And they'll say things like, I have never felt this feeling in my whole life before. I've never felt this calm. I've never felt this okay. I had one woman say, I feel like I finally exhaled, like I've been holding my breath my whole life. So you can see how when I learned how to do this, and I just had to open a practice,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then it proved it to me. It proved the immeasurable power of this, proved it to me and all over and over. Now, when in my first year of opening up, I'm going to give you a couple of stories that happened to me in my first year.
Yeah.
One was I came home from my training and my husband's friend was in our living room. And I know he'd been struggling with weight loss. He'd been obese his whole life. And I said, if you want me to help you, I know I can. And he's like, sign me up, prove it to me. He, because I was able to get to that beginning belief that was causing all the problems, making him need to eat and feel better because of those
Mhm.
feelings, his weight loss went like this: 75 pounds just
Wow.
dropped in a straight line down. That was 3 years ago. He's never gained a pound of it back.
Wow.
I'll
Wow.
give you one more completely
Please.
different. Yeah.
Please. Yeah.
One of my, maybe my second client was my father-in-law. And he said, well, let me try you out. And if you work on me, then I will talk to people, you know. I
Hmm.
said, fair enough. What do you want to work on? He said, well, I feel like I need to be more present in my life. I find myself, worrying about the future, that kind of thing. I want to be more present. And also, I find that if I am more present, my golf game improves. So let's do both of those things. I'm
Hmm.
like, sure, sounds good. So we do this. I do a great session because I really tune in with my clients' nuances. I speak words that matter to them so
Hmm.
that their subconscious goes, oh, yes, we want that. It's
Yeah.
exactly what we want to be.
Yeah.
So he leaves, and 3 hours later, I get this text and a video on my phone. And he says, oh my goodness, watch this video because if that ball is in that hole when I walk up to it, I just golfed a hole in one. He walks up to the hole and there's the ball. He left my office and went to the golf course and golfed a hole in one.
Wow. 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 That is so amazing. And thank you so much. And everyone, get your notepads out. And I want you to definitely write this Sheila's information down for sure. And but take heed to the um, her 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 customers and clients, their experiences, because this is what she does. And so I'm thinking to myself as you're speaking, it's like, wow, how much of our where we come up short in life is due to limiting beliefs, trauma that happens as kids, or things that we're told as kids that can be traumatizing. And question that I do have for you, because you're talking about, the 3-year-old. If this is true, are we more open to suggestions at a certain age, and then is there a cutoff point where we begin to, say, we don't want to hear any more information that
That's
protects
such
us from them? Yeah.
that's such a good question. I find that my largest demographic is middle age.
Hmm.
And the reason for that is I think there's some wisdom built into the stages of life. And so I have a lot of teenagers, and they're very, if they want change, they're very suggestible. If they want the change, they're very powerful too. So it works on everybody. In fact, I have a 77-year-old woman
Mm.
who, she was the one who said, I've never felt this before in my life. She changed.
Okay.
So let me answer your question this way. I get a lot of people in middle age because that's a time where if we've been living for everybody else's expectations,
Hmm.
if we've been living as a reaction to our upbringing and our programming, that's not all bad. It's built strengths in us that we had to build, right?
Right.
But
Right.
at midlife, it's a time where we think, well, is this all there is?
Yeah.
And we're asking that because that's kind of run out. That's built those strengths, and we are that way. But now we're asking for more because something in us wants to grow all these other skills that life didn't teach us on our own terms. We
Mhm.
want to know that we can be more alive, more joyful, happier in our relationships, more satisfied in our work. And so we now are coming to a place where we're like, is there more possible? And that's
Yeah.
why this is the perfect tool for what's more. In fact, my tagline is change what's possible, because that's exactly what
Hmm.
we do here. Because if
Hmm.
we keep doing the same patterns that brought us to up to 40 or 50, we're going to get more of the same with diminishing returns. We have to now build new kinds of skills that those conditions didn't teach us, that we can build from inside of ourselves.
Right.
But in this, besides age, it has to do with, I need two things from my clients to And if I have those, I know I can change their lives.
Okay. Yeah.
And one of them is they really want the change. If they have that, then I can do a lot. They have to truly
Right.
want something. If someone else wants them to come,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
that won't do it.
Yeah.
You have, it's your desire that I need because I tap into the innate passion in you for something more. That's a very important part of yourself. That's the part I'm
Hmm.
working. The part of
Hmm.
you that knows you want it but doesn't quite think it's possible because of how things have been or because
Yeah.
of what you are bombarded with.
Yeah.
But if you really want it, I can work with it. And the second trait is a willingness. There
Hmm.
just needs to be a willingness. Now, I do a lot to make people feel that they can trust me because they have to feel from me that my 100% of my point of being in this room with them is for their life to get better.
Hmm.
And I have really great tools for making that happen. But if they don't trust me, they'll feel like, what are you going to say to me that could impact me? And they have a lot of misconception about that too. They'll feel like you're going to control me. And it's not me controlling anybody. What it is you reveal what's been in your way, what you want that you want but seems impossible, and then I speak to the deepest part of you to convince it that it is possible. And I can
Hmm.
even, tell my clients there are ways they can use their own consciousness on the conscious level too. That's going to serve them more. And I teach them how to do that too. So now they've got everything working on all cylinders. But when people think that I could impose control on them, I want them to know that's not how it works. And here's why. My clients are hearing my words, right? They're not, people often think I'm just tranced out as if on some drug or something. It's not like that. You're just in the same kind of state when you're driving along in the freeway and you're like, oh my gosh, there's my exit. Where's my
Hmm.
headband? It's
Hmm.
just, that kind of state. So they're hearing my words. If I were ever, which I would never do, saying something that did not completely align with everything they wanted, they would hear that
Yeah.
and say, excuse me, no, but I would never do that, of course. But
Yeah.
it's not, they just have this misconception that I could control them, and that's not at all what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
So,
just really tapping into their own potential.
and that's that, and I think a lot of people are concerned about that. And I've heard that before, that you will reject what you disagree with in any kind of a
Yeah,
session that's dealing with hypnosis.
we
And so, yeah, we're aware enough. Now, question I do have, because you spoke a little bit about, and I do want to come back and about the willingness part and the trust part, because that is so important.
mhm.
But you spoke earlier about the relaxation phase that you take a person to, alpha, theta, or something like that.
Alpha and then theta is lower than that. Yep.
Right.
And there's health
And
that you.
so, go
Mhm.
ahead. So the question I have is like, okay, so if we were to um, at night
Uh-huh.
go to sleep to something on our ears that's affirmations.
Yeah.
Is that the same thing when we do sink into those alpha and the net theta
Mhm.
phase?
It's not the same thing. It's
Okay.
similar and it can be helpful, but it's not nearly as powerful. And here's why.
Okay.
So, what that is, it's just direct suggestion. That's like a level one hypnosis. Okay. And
Okay.
it does work, but it has diminishing returns. I'll
Okay.
even I'll even tell my clients, my first session with you, it should do something undeniable and then it'll have diminishing returns because it's just a level one. I have to do that with them so that they know that it works, so that they'll
Hmm.
come back for the deeper session and then they're more ready for it because they know it works. So now they're even more of a sponge for that. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you listen to something that's auditory, there are two things that make it not the same. One is it's impossible for it to be aligned with your deepest, truest nuances and desires, as it is with a person who spent an hour talking with you about all of that and
Yeah.
who's going to use words to speak to the very things you love in the very way you need it and using language that is all your signature. Okay.
Yeah.
Now you
Yeah.
could get a very good recording and it could match up really well with your personality and all of that. And yes, if you're in an alpha state, it can do some suggesting to you, and it could influence you a little bit, but that's going to have a
Right.
diminishing return. Okay. So with working with a really skilled practitioner, that's a level one. We'll do that. It'll have more power though, because I'm speaking to your soul, right? I'm
Yeah.
speaking stuff you really care about.
Right.
Um, and second, that's a precursor to doing the deeper work where now I'm accessing what the very thing that's in your way, and I'm removing that. And
Yeah.
that next level is just like, I can't believe it. I mean, can I give you one more story?
Well, of course, definitely the.
Okay, because this is the proof in the pudding of working with a practitioner in person who's caring about your story, your soul, and then using this deep tool that no recording could do.
Hmm.
Um, so I had a client who was divorced and remarried, but she was cheated on by her first husband. It was a toxic relationship. And she came to me because every time he texts her, they share a child. So they have to
Hmm.
still have contact, and it still gets to her every single time. Like he's still got power over her.
Hmm.
So I did a session that got to the very place that began and erased that from the programming. Like she's not in that. Older her convinced younger her she's completely out of that. She doesn't have to be watchful for that anymore.
Hmm.
And it so then she texted me this long text I get, and she goes, I can't believe what just happened. I'm so flabbergasted by it. I have to tell you every step. She went to her daughter's dance recital, and this other parent came up and started talking to her, and she was talking to him for 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes, just small talk. And she finally says, do you have a child at the school? And he said, yes, our daughter.
Hmm.
She said, Sheila, it was my ex, and I didn't even see that it was his face. Did my
Wow.
subconscious protect me from even having to see him?
Wow. Wow.
And I said, I have never had anyone tell me that, but I don't see why not. And she said, I said, how has it been since then? She goes, his texts don't bother me anymore at all. So the difference between just an audio thing and a
Yeah.
human being who's
Yeah.
totally tied in with your story, your pain, your anguish, and your dreams,
Yeah.
and then able to get specifically to the event that you went through, that's no audio could ever do anything like that.
Wow. Yeah. So customization is really where it's at. Like you have to customize it to the person. And so yeah, and I wanted to know that because myself and others, I'm pretty sure, are possibly going to sleep with those affirmations going into their into their subconscious minds at night.
Yeah. Yep.
And like you say, it could, so very, it's a good
Make a
starting
small
point, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It
It's
could make a
cool.
small difference. Hmm.
Yeah, and but to really dig deep and really get to the center of things, that's where we really, really make change happen.
Yeah.
And so that's awesome. And thanks for that. Because I think the thing is that willingness is such a, like you said, willingness and trust is such a powerful word, and a powerful part of your process and your therapy. Uh, because again, I always wonder, like, when it comes to those kinds of like hypnosis, how many people are ready and willing to give up their protection
Yeah.
and those kinds of things, even though we say we want a certain life, but there's, on some level, that protection serves us on some level, in some way, somehow.
Hmm. What you touch on is a universal truth.
Hmm.
This is a universal truth. I'm actually writing a book about this.
Okay, good.
A universal truth that I've come to absolutely believe is true is that we will not grow without going through a vulnerability tunnel.
Hmm.
So, in order to truly reach a whole new level of joy and elation and meaning and richness in our lives, we have to grow through a discomfort to get there. We have to give something up. And so, the reason I'm so in love with my practice is because it's easier here.
Hmm.
It's easier to do it when you are deeply relaxed, closed your
Yeah.
eyes, it's just easier than when you're staring at someone and you feel like, my core feeling was that, man, something must be wrong with me.
Yeah.
To expose that to somebody
Yeah.
it's almost impossible for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in hypnosis, they are willing to just follow my lead, and I will take them on a journey that will help them get through that tunnel in one session rather than in years.
Yeah.
Um, but it doesn't mean that you still don't have to go through one. Like, for example, I had a guy just the other day, and in therapy, people often will talk and talk and talk because they don't want you to get in there. They're protecting
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So he was kind of doing that. And I said, well, I think it's time, if you're willing, to work on the dad thing.
Hmm.
The anger's coming from dad, and it's
His
suppressed.
dad. His
His dad,
dad.
his dad.
Yes. Yes.
And he's like, okay, you're probably right. I'm like, this is why you're feeling angry and irritable. It's because the source of anger's not been dealt with. And we could do that today if you want to. And so we didn't have to sit on my couch and talk about it. I already knew enough.
Hmm.
We went to the hypnosis chair and regressed to where it started and healed it. And this was so cute because before, when we were talking, he said, I'm reading Brene Brown. And I was like, good for you. She's a genius. And she's going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, that there's going to be a vulnerability tunnel we're going to go through.
Hmm.
And anyway, so then we do this hypnosis session, and he comes out of it and he goes, oh my God, you tunneled me. Like, he had gone through the tunnel and he knew it. And he just wrote this on my, and he put it up. He wrote this after that session. I was feeling totally helpless, and now I'm physically better. At the
Wow.
end of that
Wow.
session, he said, I feel completely different than when I walked in here. So when you think about, yes, we all have to be a little bit vulnerable. This makes it easier. And you
Hmm.
think about, in one session, having it be that much different. I mean, how bad could that be? You know?
There's there's a level of frustration that conjures up within me, and
Okay.
this is why. Because where and why are we not hearing about, these types of strategies and tools? We are unhappy. In my observation, just looking over my city, my community, the country, the world, so
Yeah.
many of us, we have this. We're so at a level of of not knowing what the future looks like, very pessimistic in our views.
Yep.
And why are we hiding these tools and strategies in order to be the best that we can be?
That is a great question. Yeah, why aren't people shouting from the rooftops about this?
Your clients are. Your clients are. And it's like,
Yeah, my
and it's I'm
clients
like
are.
saying, wait a minute, what are we missing? It's like,
Right. Well, I think we are missing something, and I think it's bigger than hypnosis. And so, if you don't mind me
please,
venturing into more of a philosophical viewpoint
yes,
here, and I'll also get a little personal.
yeah,
I was a person who, even though I was a happy kid, happiness wasn't possible
hmm,
for very long. It would always get ruined by my parents fighting, right? So I learned that although I was happy, I just couldn't get to stay happy, right?
hmm,
What that grew into was, at some point, even though my life was really good, I would wake up feeling like, oh, I don't know.
hmm,
And I don't know about this, going through all the, I would wake up feeling like, okay, there's 10,000 things that I have to do. It
yeah,
would just felt gray. And it would be a relief for me to think about dying.
that's what I was wondering.
And had that with me for a very long time. Every morning I would dream about dying. I ended up researching near death experiences for 30 years,
Hmm. Hmm. Wow,
from when I was a teenager.
wow,
I needed to know there was something beyond this.
yeah, yeah,
So I used to be that person who would wake up and feel relieved by dreaming of dying. It was some level, for sure, of depression.
yeah.
And so I had to find out, how can you be happy here?
Hmm. Well,
How okay.
question: were you finding, was there any happiness on the other side that you saw that gave you some kind of relief and say, okay, in those NDEs, it's like,
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. So
yeah,
they taught me so much, which we could go into now or
yeah,
another. Wanted me to go into it?
yeah, yeah, tap into it because I think we need to hear about these things, honestly.
Okay. What this taught me is that it showed me that there is a purpose for all of these things we just have to
Mm.
do because we're born. There is an actual point to it all. And the reason that came to that conclusion is because after 30 years of researching this, and there's an organization called IANS, which is the International Association of Near Death Studies. There's one called NDERF, Near Death Experiences Research Foundation.
Mhm.
They study anyone who's ever come forth with their story. And after studying them and listening to everybody's stories, they have concluded several common components of almost every NDE.
Mhm. Mhm.
One is this overwhelming, unconditional feeling of love, like
Mhm.
you're the most perfect motherly, loving mother's embrace times a million.
Wow. Wow.
There's also so very commonly a life review where they are guided to look back on their life experiences from a 360 point of view, where they
Mhm.
see if they harmed somebody, the whole ripple effect of what harm that caused, and they feel the harm that it caused.
Wow.
On the other side, when we were kind, when we showed love, when we learned a new way to be that was, better, we experience how that had ripple effects on the person or the people, and how then that affected them and their people. And we feel the love and beauty that comes from when we evolve.
Mhm.
So also another astounding point is that even mothers, and I worked very hard to get my twins. I had fertility issues, and when I got them, it was like the most beautiful miracle of my life, and they still are. And mothers, even in that afterlife, will sometimes not want to come back
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's so incredibly beautiful. And I know the power of the love of a mother. If it's
Mhm.
more powerful than that, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they do end up choosing to come back,
Yeah.
because they're sort of guided to see, not pushed, but sort of guided to see that they did come here for certain lessons and things they truly came to learn here that they can't learn anywhere else.
Mhm.
So, long story short, what that did for me was I knew that even if it was hard here, I would have that at some point. And then I started to really think, well, I really do have a purpose. My purpose is to become more loving, more kind, more joyful, more courageous. There is a real purpose here. And I started aligning my life with that. And what happened was I started not caring so much about what my house looked like, or
Mm.
how my clothes fit, or if people, you know, agreed with me or not. As long as I was doing speaking my truth in a loving, kind way, I didn't have to gather a whole bunch of people who agreed or not, because it was so true in here. What happened was I started aligning with my spirit.
Mm.
And that is partially why I think what's happening in my particular office is so important, is because I think that might be what I'm doing, helping people align with their deepest, self that really came here for certain reasons, to experience certain kinds of wonderful experiences. And it also taught me that when we are in psychology, there's no room for the spirit.
Mhm.
So I grew this model. Like, actually, what works is conscious, psychological, and spiritual. All of it has to be there. Now, everyone's a spirit, in my opinion, whether or not they espouse a certain religion. That's, but we have a spirit about us. It's a way we are. It's what we must learn about and what we don't care about. That's our spirit, right? And so when we align with that, everything flows beautifully.
Right.
And but the hard part isn't hearing the niggling voice that tells you what you want. The hard part is following it in light of all the conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a, philosophical tangent, but it's what's happening here. And I think it has something to do with why I'm getting the results I'm getting, because I know that everyone who walks in here is a beautiful, perfect entity, spirit who's been conditioned by things that got stuff in their way.
Right.
Does that
Well,
answer your
powerful.
question?
No, that's what it is, so powerful. And and I intentionally wanted the conversation to go this way because I had just put something on my Facebook page, just a couple of days ago,
Mhm.
talking about commitment and consistency in terms of your goals and your dreams, and how so much of us are limiting ourselves, and how we allow those limitations to really throw us out of, take us out of that game.
Yeah.
We come up short. And so now we are frustrated, we are angry, we are, because we feel less than, because we really don't know who we are. And like you say,
Yeah.
when your clients come into your office, you see them as this perfect being, this perfect, spirit.
Yes.
But
Yes.
we don't know that of ourselves. And
Yep.
let me ask you this question, and this might be, how do you see yourself? If that,
Great question.
yeah.
You are so fun to talk to. You ask great questions. I love this conversation so much. Okay. All right. I um I came to fall in love with myself,
Hmm.
and it was not easy.
Oh yeah.
I went through vulnerability tunnel after vulnerability tunnel. And how did it happen? Well, I'm gonna be real, like I always
Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
There was a few years where I was doing a real deep mining of myself, and it was because after COVID, my daughter was deeply depressed.
Hmm.
So and I was in school to become a therapist at the time, and so I would drop her off at school, and she was miserable, absolutely miserable, and her lows were so low, and I was the person she felt safe enough to share them with,
Hmm.
and it would just slay my heart open. I'd go home, and I knew I had school to do, and I was like, okay, I will sit in this chair, my chair in my living room. I will sit in this chair and I will process this until I'm good and I can start my day. That was about a year or a year and a half of a process that grew of crying,
Hmm.
praying, meditating, and then dreaming.
Hmm.
Crying has to happen because it was so painful. And it was everything I did not want. It was everything I transcended from my family and had grown into this wonderful, loving mom, and it still wasn't enough. I had a depressed daughter. It was just
Hmm.
like, could not hurt me anymore. I had to process all that pain, pray to something that has some kind of vision of how this could happen, and how it could somehow be okay,
Hmm.
and ask for help and everything, and then meditate to get clear, and then dreaming. Dreaming is really, really important. When we're dreaming, we are telling whatever can listen, if I'm here alive, I must matter. That means that what I care about must matter. If anyone can hear it, just let me explain it to you as passionately as possible. I want her okay. I want her to be happy. I want her to, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to do it all. It's not happening with all my tools. So help me, right?
Wow.
So it was a year and a half of that. Now, what happened was over the course of that time, there's way more I could tell you.
Hmm.
Um, but in that state, I got answers. I got answers from that state. I got answers by accepting that I have no guarantees about my daughter,
Mm.
despite the fact that I would do anything. There are no guarantees here.
Wow.
And when someone accepts the deepest, truest,
Mm.
painful
Mm.
thing, something happens. Life says, That's right. It's not up to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
don't worry. It's up to me.
Hmm.
And she started to slowly get better. And she's I stopped being so codependent because I could see that I needed to accept what was a universal truth, that I cannot control everything. I can do everything I can do, and it's not up to me.
Hmm.
When I accepted that deeper truth, truer than my inside truth, life started showing me something beautiful. And then I started believing in that thing. And then I started talking to that every single day, you know, asking, when we're asking about something we know we desire, but we know we don't know how to make happen.
Yeah.
That's when we're really aligned with our spirit. And I found I got answers.
Wow. Wow.
And then what that taught me is I have the ability to tune into that right in here,
Hmm.
right inside of me. I have the ability to do that. And I also have the ability to handle the deepest, darkest feelings life can bring me.
Yeah.
So that made me believe in myself. And it made me also feel beautiful because I can help other people go to those scary places and not be alone because I've been there myself. And now my whole life feels like a gift that I get to do this in this beautiful office, which I decorated for my people because so they would love it. I found the most comfortable chair I could ever. I sat in 10,000 chairs to have it be the most comfortable chair for them. Like it's a mission and I'm doing it and it's a gift to be able to have gone through that, to be able to give this. It every day does now feel like a miracle.
Wow.
So that happened and it was not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's worth
That-
it.
Because I mean, it's got to be when you go through, like you said, these tunnels of vulnerability, these hard truths, and
Yeah.
realizing, that actually I'm all right. Actually, I'm going to be okay.
Mhm.
The the feeling of levity, the freedom that must open up.
Yes. Yes.
Powerful. Now, and I say that because I've been there. I've
Oh,
been there.
good.
I've
So
been
glad.
there where I always tell people, I had a spiritual moment when I was traveling from North Carolina to New York, and um, I was going through a crazy time in my life, and I was just didn't know where things were going to go, and I was questioning everything. I was questioning, me. I was questioning God. I was questioning life. Everything was just kind of like going on at the same time, and so it was either sunset or sunrise, whichever one. I saw the sun for the first time.
Oh,
Sheila, it was with it. If I could have gone through the glass, I could have touched the sun for the first time. It was that close, it was that powerful. And it shared with me, it told me something that this thing called life, this life thing, is way more than we could
mm,
ever imagine, you know. And
mhm.
I stood up because I started crying. I stood up. I was in tears because I'm like, does anyone else see this? No one saw it. No one saw
Oh,
it. That told me that was for me.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, that was
Yeah.
that was a message from me.
Oh my gosh, Todd.
Turned my whole world upside down.
Amazing.
And but the freedom and the that it created within me, to understand that, like I said, this life thing is beautiful, it's powerful,
Yep.
and way more expansive than we could ever imagine. Like you
Oh
were
yes.
speaking about the NDEs,
Oh
this thing
yes.
is on the other side. Just imagine what it is over there. So, I connect with you on so many levels, and I'm just fascinated with your stories and your passion. I feel it coming through. I'm like, I'm getting closer to the screens, like, more, more, more.
This is a wonderful conversation. I'm absolutely loving it.
I appreciate it because, like I said, this is so in alignment with who I am and who I am still becoming. There's still work to do, Sheila.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
There's still work to do. So I want to make sure that we definitely are in contact,
Yeah,
with
me
each
too.
other.
Absolutely. You have my
And
email. You know where to find me.
yes, I know where to find you and all. And so everyone, as we come in for a landing here, um, if this was over your head, fine. But just understand that that's only going to be for a time. You will trip back to this, God willing,
Right.
because I think life is persistent. Life will continue to ask, "Who are you?"
Yep.
And you, we're going to have to continue to knock that knock is never going to end.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
It's never going to end. So I want to say thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with us for a little bit. Sheila, I want you to tell everyone where they can find you, how they can find you, because you have to get out to the world.
Thank you. I'm working on it. I have 3 chapters of my book started. I've got a
Please.
podcast and a YouTube
Yes.
channel. I'm working on it. But I love my clients first, so I can only go so fast on the big.
Yes.
Yeah. But thank you for that. So I have several places you can find me. Let me just give you my email first. If this touched you in any way, let me know personally. I would love to hear it. And that's Sheila, SHEILA, at shifthypnosis.org. Okay. My website is shifthypnosis.org. And my podcast is Shift is Happening. And you can find it on Apple, Spotify. And then my YouTube channel, which is just in its birthing stage, is Shift is Happening Now. So you can find me in all those places. I also have a Substack. That's right. I just started that. So anyway, but if you email me, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear if this touched you in any way, or even if you have questions, I would answer them personally. I want to touch lives. That's what my whole life's mission is, and make them better, because I know how I used to feel, and I don't feel that way anymore. And my mission is to make sure that everybody feels as good as we can. Because when sorry, I'm going off a little bit, but when we are fully in love with our life, we are the biggest force for love that we can possibly be. We're reaching more everywhere we go. We're making more of a difference if we're truly happy. So every one of you, if you've ever thought that you don't deserve to be happy, or that you're supposed to put everybody else first, it's a lie. It is not true. You, completely filled up with joy and aliveness and believing what's possible, make everyone else more available to that reality. And you just spread more love and goodness and power. And we all know we need this right now, right? In this crazy world out there. So reach out to me, Sheila at shifthypnosis.org, or check out my website or my YouTube channel or my podcast. But it's my absolute pleasure to be here with you, Todd. You're a gift to my day, and I'm so glad that we've met.
Yes.
We speak the same language.
Yes, we do. We do. And like I said, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And like I said, everyone, that's what this podcast is all about. Just bringing these professionals that are out there in the trenches on a daily basis, helping us do just that, live our best lives. And so I've been wild today, and I'm pretty sure you got wild too as you're listening to this podcast. I'm so looking forward to Sheila and our ongoing conversations. And I always say we all have a book inside of us, so I'm so glad that you are putting that together, and definitely check her out. So everyone, thank you so much for hanging out with us for another episode of Living Your Best Lives, or Living Your Best Life. That's the name of the show, Living Your Best Life. I'll catch you on the next one, and let's head out here and do our thing. All right, let's live our best lives. Y'all be good. Todd Cheek signing off. Y'all be good. Take care. Bye-bye.